Bien, saludamos a todos los participantes. Nos indica el equipo de redes que son más de...
We'd like to greet all the participants, more than 1,000 people around the world streaming live. We are in Cordoba, Argentina, where we have those beautiful images that you have there. The third activity today of the first World Forum on Tourism and Economic Development in the framework of the fifth World Forum on Local Economic Development. The next panel is going to be now presented. Recovery strategies for the sector from the private sector outlook. The moderator in this panel, Mr. Maximiliano Mauvesin. Maximiliano Mauvesin, Secretary of the South American Federation, FEDESUD, of Tourism. He studied social sciences and international relations, different master degrees, such as the specialization in intersectorial relations, public-private of the IDB in Washington, D.C., and the diplomat degree on Flaxo, the Latin American Social Sciences University in Mexico. He speaks 5 languages: English, Spanish, French, Portuguese, and Dutch, and he was director of the Washington, Mexico Institute, and he led projects in Blas Pascal University in Cordoba, and he was invited to the Master of Tourism and Administration in George Washington University in the U.S., advisor of several embassies and councils and companies here in Argentina and abroad. He was executive of the Chamber of Tourism in Cordoba, and currently he is General Secretary of the FEDESUD, Director of the Entrepreneurial Forum of the Central Region in Argentina, and coordinator of the Bioceanic Corridor between Argentina, Brazil, Chile, and Uruguay. Maxi, it's a pleasure to greet you and, of course, to present this panel that has several voices that are highly qualified. Thank you very much, Laura. It's a pleasure once again. So this is the fourth panel today, and the special characteristic is the participation of the private sector in tourism, and we have key people from Iberoamerica. We have Francisco Rivero, president of SCOL Madrid. Thank you, Francisco, for being with us. Also, Aldo Elias, president of our Argentine Chamber of Tourism. Marco Mercado Murillo, president of the private sector of Bolivia's tourism. Our friend Helen Coromjian, she's the executive VP of the Entrepreneurial Federation of Tourism in Chile. We'll have our friend Holbach Mulliton from Ecuador, president of the Federation of Chambers of Tourism. Carlos Anchorena, also from Peru. Marina Cantera, president of the Uruguayan Tourism Chamber. Thank you very much. Leudo Gonzalez, president of the Higher Council of Tourism in Venezuela. Leudo, thank you very much. We know it's been a great effort for you to be with us today. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate your participation. Well, we're going to start now with this panel that somehow is going to enlighten us with the strategies, the recovery strategies for the sector, with an outlook on the private sector, from the private sector. We're going to start with Francisco Rivero, president of SCOL, connected from Madrid, and who has a short presentation for us. And for us, it's a pleasure and honor to have you here. Thank you, Francisco. The floor is yours. Hello, dear friends. Thank you. I really appreciate the time. In a few minutes, I'm going to explain the situation of tourism in Spain. For me, this technological issue is quite a thing. I'm sharing my screen. Can you see my screen? Without a doubt, what was tourism in Spain in 2019? Look at this. Spain is the most competitive country in the world. It's a position, it's a role, a place, a rank that it had since 2015, 83 million tourists and 91 billion euros, 12.4% in the GDP directly entered from the tourism industry. Let's see the situation now after the pandemic, the great catastrophe. We've only had 19 million tourists, 77% less. We had about 20 billion euros, so 78% less. And the GDP also dropped 4.3%. There are hotels that have been acquired by hedge funds with a profitability of less than 5%. But we're going to give you some hope. Tourism is reactivating. The European Union, as of today, they started showing what the health passport is, the vaccination passport is. There are more people that have gotten their vaccine, and from here, we want to do proximity tourism so that we get to move around the country and with a lot of course, safety measures, nature tourism. And during this time, there were many important agreements, such as the one I write here, the World Tourism Organization with Telefónica Spain for digitalizations. There are several companies, hotels, touristic companies that are still under an old management system, and we intend to update those. Some solutions, because I want to be very brief. Europe is going to give Spain 140 billion euros. 3.5 billions of those will come to the touristic sector. There are private public actions to support tourism. The information is the same. There are good numbers. Strikes were reduced, and we have to give certainties and give more mobility to the Spanish citizens and for the foreign people who come to Spain. There are more than 18 million tourists that came in 2019 came from England. So we are opening borders to them, and we want that to happen all throughout the Spanish territory, in the Canary Islands, in the Sun Coast, in the Brave Coast. And so there is a lot of tourism. We're leaders in the world for beach tourism, but we want to add other types of tourisms that are interesting, like cultural tourism, because those tourists that came to Spain spend twice as much money. It's without a doubt that we still have to work a lot with tourism. It's a public-private tourism, touristic sector that needs to give support. Thank you so much, everybody. All right, thank you, Francisco. Thanks for your words. I have to highlight that Francisco, today, he is the president of SCOL International Madrid, but he has a doctorate in tourism. He's specialized as journalist in tourism, and he's been 30 years in the management of the tourism agency in Spain. Please stay with us for questions. Now we'll move on to give the floor to FEDESUD members, the South American Federation of Tourism that groups all the chambers of tourism of Latin America. And to begin, we're going to talk about certain topics, but first I'm going to give the floor to the president of the Argentine Chamber of Tourism and current president of the South American Federation of Tourism, Aldo Elias.
Thank you, Maxi. Thank you to this global forum that has brought us together to address future issues regarding tourism, so to speak, the resetting of tourism, because COVID-19 crisis had pushed us to reset ourselves so we can adapt to this new reality, because bottom line, The pandemic has brought up a new scenario, and tourism so important for the industry, for economy in the world. We had to come up with innovative ideas that would give us the opportunity to continue enjoying one of the most cross-sectional activities of world economy. Welcome, and thanks to this huge team from FEDESUD, who will be giving us a snapshot of what is happening and what we can offer from each of our regions and sectors that comprise each of the tourist activities. Thank you, Aldo Elias, President of FEDESA. We'll begin with a set of topics, set of issues that will be addressed by each of the presidents of the chambers of tourism that are members of the FEDESUD. FEDESUD is a co-organizer of this Global Forum 2021. To start the first round, we'll give the floor to Colbach Muneton, President of the Peruvian Chamber of Tourist Agencies. Thank you very much, and congratulations on this first local forum. In Ecuador, 1.5 million tourists per year. This is how many tourists we received. Now we are ranking number 2. So what do we need to do for economic recovery and reactivation? Vaccination. Without vaccination, there is no reactivation. But we need also, what about companies? Well, this is for people, but for companies, what do companies need to recover? Because let's suppose then I'm healthy tomorrow, but another problem comes up. So this is what we're working with the Minister of Tourism, how to aid companies, for example, in terms of taxation and so on. And we need to promote the country. We need to promote Ecuador, and this is for everybody. It's not about just one province like Galapagos. Everybody is vaccinated, but it will not reactivate if the rest of the country is not vaccinated. So we need to encourage, we need to find new market niches. We need to reopen casinos, and we have a new president who has a touristic vision, and that is an advantage. And we're working on competitiveness. So what is going on with my competitiveness? Because Ecuadorians know that it is expensive. So we asked the president to remove the VAT for 3 months, just for a trial purpose. So I have over 1 million people that travel abroad, and now is becoming even more important because of the vaccination tourism. So agricultural tourism. So we need to match. We need to combine without leaving behind all of the hotels. We also have to support how to reactivate the cost of basic services. They have to be differentiated for at least 3 years if you want this industry to boost. So we were developing a tourism cluster because that was left behind because the focus is on vaccination. But we need to discuss re-engineering issues, continuous development. We need to unite the whole country. The country has to be united to move ahead. Now decisions have to be made together with all of the sectors, because oftentimes there are political decisions that are above technical decisions, and lockdowns have affected tourism. There is no time. There is no time for decision making. It's like going to a race and with a car that I'm just testing it. We need to go to have all of our programs tested and make sure that everything is working to recover such an industry that has been so beneficial to all of human beings, because everybody needs peace, leisure, and tranquility. Thank you for your contribution. You talked about the impact of regional economies and local economies. We'll now give the floor to Helen from Chile, Vice President of FEDETUR Chile, the Federation of Tourist Companies in Chile, who will address the future of tourism. Helen, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you very much for this invitation. Congratulations to the organizers of GLOCAL. Here we can represent the private sector, FEDESUD, the Federation of South American Companies, and as the touristic sector, the one that perhaps was hit the most by this pandemic. We have undergone a situation that, if I could tell you how hard we had it here in Chile in the touristic sector, all the areas such as accommodation, transportation, the food, the restaurants industry. I just heard the words from Ecuador. It's the same thing that we're undergoing here in Chile. All the measures to support the industry are not enough because the size of the pandemic situation is too much, and the impact that we've had is huge. We have said that the best subsidy that we can get from the government and the state is the possibility to go back to work. Nowadays, this lockdown is complicating us, the lack of people moving around, and that is very important in order to open borders. In the case of Chile, they will be closed until June 15th, and we hope that that's when borders get to open and we can soon start getting new tourists. But in terms of the renewal and the future of the tourist industry, which is the topic, the issue at hand, it is very difficult to predict what's going to happen with the tourist industry in the future. However, there are certain elements that we can consider to be basic ones. One that has to do with safety. That's going to be the most important element within the mobility and traffic and touristic movement, but that's going to be understood as a base for tourists to travel and to move around. The health safety will be very important too. Tourists who come from abroad, from long distances, from other hemispheres, are going to weigh that we as countries and we, the private sector, have a foundation of of minimum sanitary measures to give them a health-safe experience. And we also have ahead a lot of work to do in terms of how we are going to organize ourselves to validate the healthcare systems for each one of the countries to make sure that visitors can come and visit destinations, being sure that they will be well taken care of with the vaccination programs. We still have a lot of work to do. We see that IATA and the IATA Travel Pass and other elements that everybody will look for to validate the vaccination processes in each one of the countries so that every person that has the 2 doses plus a 15 days can travel. That work is really important. We need to have that agreement, that consensus among the countries to travel abroad in the future. We, the private sector, have a very important role to play. We need to support, we have to put pressure, but also to communicate so that there is that approval, there is a fluent exchange of information among the countries. On the other hand, it is also very important that we consider that our countries, and most particularly in the case of South America, something that is in our favor is that in general we promote nature tourism, open space tourism, and that's going to be very good for us because that's when we have social distancing in a very natural way, and we have to profit from that. It's an advantage when we compete with other places around the world. And finally, I wanted to say that among the renewal of tourism, it's very important that we have other places around the world. Everybody will compete to try to capture these tourism towards their countries, and we have to work regionally as a macro region in South America, and we have to work together where competition has to give way to complementation. And I think that's the message I want to leave with you about the future of the touristic industry in the future. Thank you so much, Helen, for your ideas. I think it is key what you closed with, to work together as a region, to think about this macro region in the South of America, of the Americas. And that is the goal of our South American Federation of Tourism, to promote those strategic alliances that allow us to work together in post of the touristic development. And sorry about the pronunciation of your name, Kojonkian, Executive VP of FEDETUR. The tourism agencies in Chile talked about the tourism industry in Chile. And now I give the floor to our friend Carlos Canales Sanchorena, who is here with us from Lima, Peru. And he's going to talk about the public-private link and the restarting of tourism. It's very easy for you to say, to develop that topic, right? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maxi. The pandemics has pushed us to this issue, to deal with this issue, that is the public and private sector's connection. And if we had not, I mean, if we do not take these pandemics as the opportunity to work together and to create a permanent basis relationship, and it is difficult for a health minister or an economy minister to deal with all of the issues that are related to tourism. Tourism involves connectivity, contact among people, and through health measures, social distancing protocols, and credentials. So we say, okay, the rules of the game change, and so the role of the state has to be really smart, so the state does not destroy the jobs that have taken so much effort to build. And and also the environment and the culture, so that the role of governments has to, of course, pass protocols and measures, health measures, but also supports jobs and job creation programs, so that companies are not do not have to shut down. And what is the role from the private sector to coexist with these harsh health measures, to implement protocols which are quite costly, and to keep our human resources as much as possible, and to keep our companies open. This is really difficult in an environment where there's border closures, and so we need to reinvent ourselves based on this new norm. Today, governments have a responsibility, which is to vaccinate everyone, such as and also, for example, the Dominican Republic is a good example. The touristic sector is at the priority, Egypt and some other countries in Europe. And with this, tax laws are drafted to aid business people and companies involved in tourism. Financial issues, that is, what kind of aid, financial aid, can be provided to companies in the sectors, and which labor measures have to be modified. And governments must, everybody must be fully encompassed. So we should look at best practices and good examples. There's no time for experimentation, like, for example, shutting down beaches or other locations. And private companies or the private sector has to reinvent itself, because we'll depend mainly on the domestic market, because the products are different, what is being offered is different, the products are different. So the pandemic is here to stay. Vaccination is here to stay. So this new norm implies us to change our approaches regarding touristic products. As Helen just said, people look for open spaces, not many people. Let's forget about travels in destinations where there's a lot of people. We need to have spaces with few people, nature, and well-being. So the market first will begin at a local level, and this is where we have to unite our efforts to promote tourism at a local level, and then, regionally speaking, to kind of have countries come together, neighboring countries come together, and then the global market. This is related to the vaccination programs, and this is what we want to generate. Finally, we need to create trust. That is, services have to be based on trust, on reliability, so the traveler knows that he's traveling to a place that is secure, that is safe, so that the compliance with protocols and all of the measures must be carried out, but always working together with the public and private sectors, working together. So if we don't make measures to fight the economic pandemics that is really serious at this time, and also the psychological pandemics that affect a lot of our stakeholders. So there is a connection between the private and public sectors. If we don't use this as an opportunity, we don't understand this as an opportunity, then the reactivation will take 4 or 5 years, and not, it'll not take place in a short term. Thank you, Carlos. Carlos Canale Anchoria, President of Canatur, the Peruvian Chamber of Tourism. you discussed something very important, the joint work between the public and private sector. We'll now address sustainability in tourism. And to do this, we'll give the floor to Marina Cantera, the president of the Uruguayan Chamber of Tourism. Marina, thank you for being with us.
Good afternoon, everybody, from here, from Uruguay, Montevideo. A great greeting to all of those watching. It's a pleasure to all of us be together, all the FEDESUD colleagues, discussing these important matters for our sector. Of course, we're all wondering, what is the role of sustainability in this context we are in this pandemic context we are in? Sustainability has become very important with a new drive and a new outlook. I believe that in this moment we have to look at sustainability and understand that it has three dimensions that we need to dig into. The environmental concept, the one that is more spread out. When we talk about sustainability, everybody lets their thoughts flow about environmental sustainability, watching the resources, but also it's very important whatever has to do with the economic side. For a company, of course, profitability is important, but it's also important to watch and take care of the resources in the long run. How many catastrophes we would have prevented if we had had more sustainable cities that ensures and safeguards companies in the future. A company that works socially and works to contribute to the community where they're in, benefits everybody, the company, the external clients, internal clients, and the community. Somehow, this triple impact that companies should have ensures that we can position ourselves in moments like this, in moments that are much safer, much more guaranteed, and it allows us to have some certainty in moments like the ones we are living in. We, of course, need to give answers to all the companies in order to ensure a resilient recovery for communities, for ecosystems, for people. And I see sustainable tourism to develop locally in all the countries where we are working on, and to continue aiming at those SDGs for the agenda, for the 2030 agenda, as the main goal to achieve at the end of the day. I want to discuss also the quality of the proposals. Nowadays, as the colleague said, tourists are reinventing themselves. They are looking at each proposal that they look at in a different way, and the quality, of course, it's a concept that is very much close to sustainability, and that's why it's so important to offer proposals that are really attractive, but also that are within the context of that this new post-pandemic client is looking for, or that adapts itself to this pandemic situation. And the other concept I wanted to discuss with you is adoption of technology, how technology will enable us to face moments like this, and how it allows sustainability in these three dimensions that we discussed, especially for entrepreneurs. Now, technology shows us in this pandemic that there is an opportunity to develop economically, but also to be sustainable in the long run, especially for companies. That is a concept that we should all take into account. In Uruguay, at public-private sector level, we are working very consistently in order to guarantee and to improve those enterprises that are part and improve sustainability. So we think it's key to continue working together to bring projects on the table that companies, it's very important that companies invest and that they are more sustainable in the long run. Most of all, to leverage the entrepreneurial and tourism sectors in all its heterogeneity. As you know, tourism is very heterogeneous. We have small companies, but we also have huge companies. And in that heterogeneous in between, we have to achieve sustainability, and that at entrepreneurial level, we can be stronger. So I want to thank you all, and we look forward to listen to the questions. Thank you. Thank you very much, Marina. Marina Cantera, President of Cantur, the Uruguayan Chamber of Tourism, and she's a referent in terms of sustainability. As you said, Uruguay has always been, for us, a pillar for all these ideas. Thank you for sharing that. Now we'll go to a fifth topic that has to do with training and employment. Without a doubt, they represent huge challenges in one of the sectors that have been more damaged in the tourism economy. And that's training. Marco Antonio Murillo, President of the Private Sector of Tourism from Bolivia. Marcos, thank you very much for being with us. The floor is yours.
Maximiliano, thank you very much. Warm greetings to all of my colleagues, and thank you for this invitation. I think this is an important forum where we can exchange the vision of Latin American countries regarding our current scenario. The effects of COVID-19 in labor markets have impacted. We could say that COVID-19 has destroyed the labor fabrics. Based on WTTC, over 140 million jobs have been lost in the area of tourism. But we know this. We've been discussing this for a year. The effects are really harsh. And this is the question, right? What strategies can we use to be able to reactivate the sector, and so that the employment sector can also reactivate itself? I think that around the globe, and particularly Latin America, since the beginning of the pandemics, the private sector tried to put together individual actions to mitigate unemployment. A lot of companies had to make their employees redundant because it was really difficult to sustain, to be able to keep their human resources. These are the issues where a lot of the countries have been going through. Now, there's a second phase, which is reactivation, and we believe that states and the private sectors have to work together. We believe that incentive programs should be generated to bring in the human resources, and human resources in tourism are highly qualified. The hotel industry, you cannot train somebody in a month or 2 months. It requires a long time, and these resources are being affected these days. Companies cannot create jobs because we don't have the necessary income. But we should work together with states and authorities to create incentive programs for recovery, to reactivate these jobs. This is one of the strategies we believe should be appropriate. This was carried out in other countries. Colombia is an example, Argentina as well, Spain. The other point, the other strategy that could be adopted is to create programs or aid funds, supporting funds to all of the touristic suppliers, and the private sector will not be able to reactivate by itself without the support of the states and the authorities. In order to create jobs, you need to have the necessary conditions. Carlos just spoke about it. The public-private relationship has been lost, and so today we need to create supporting programs or aid programs for suppliers, and this will lead to a reincorporation of the jobs. And then to strengthen training. Today, we see that the whole production chain has changed. The demand is different. Tourists today are seek for a different kind of tourism. Thereby, we need to train human resources much more. We also believe another strategy would be to create incentive programs to hire young people. There are many professionals now, many graduate students, but who do not have a job. So states should create incentive programs. And the other strategy is that all countries should prioritize vaccination programs, particularly the tourism sector. This would lead to this understanding that the private and public sectors have to work together. I think this is an important forum for authorities and officials to see this problem, this issue. If the private sector is not reactivated, then we'll not be able to create jobs. So we believe that these forums will allow us to show this need, and I look forward that Latin America can actually come up with a solution in as quick as possible. Thank you. Marco Antonio Mercado Murillo is the president of the tourism private sector in Bolivia, member of FEDESUD. And he just discussed training and employment, a great challenge for tourism. Now, Leudo González, who's the president of Conceturismo, which is the Council of Tourism from Venezuela. Leudo will discuss innovation, development in tourism, and the new challenges we have ahead of us. Leudo, it's an honor to have you here with us. We're all ears.
Thank you, Maxi. My greetings from Caracas, Venezuela, and all my friends from FEDESUD. I'd like to thank you for inviting me. Since March last year, the touristic sector in Venezuela was completely stopped up until November last year, when we started having some sort of reactivation in some sectors and some international routes that were still opened over these past months. We were able to travel to nearby countries such as Panama, Mexico, and Dominican Republic. Bolivia also. And outside the continent, we only travel to Turkey. That's the only place where we can go to. So in our country, we have worked on intermittent lockdown, 7 lockdown days, 7 days opened. And in some touristic destinations that are far away, such as our national park, it has a specific characteristics. You can only reach if you have a plane. By plane, you can only reach that by plane. So we were able to see how mobility to Canaima was, the mobility towards Canaima was pretty much promoted. For me, it's fascinating to tell you the way we see tourism. I have no doubt that the growth that we've had over the last 10 years came hand in hand with technologies. The idea of approaching the demand and the offer through technology was key, and I think it was a great way to move everybody around the world. When the pandemic hit, the budget that we've seen and the new technologies, and here we are talking about an ecosystems of apps in all the platforms, the IoT, big data, geolocalization, blockchain, all of that has been potentiated much more. And we are in this new industrial revolution in which tourism will have to adapt and mutate in our countries, will have to enter that industrial revolution in order to be in the front line when we can reactivate the industry. We've seen as world-class destinations are changing and transitioning towards smart destinations, where health, safety, the physical distancing, the location of people and the knowledge of their habits are all known in real time, and decisions are made that affect destinations incredibly fast. And we see that there are many apps around the world that have been developed to somehow make traveling easier, even including those PCR credentials and vaccination credentials. And the different countries are leading that in an automated way, affecting as little as possible all the mobility around the world. But what is the reality in our region? In many countries in the region, we are delayed compared to the rest of the world. If we compared ourselves in the world ranking, we are in the middle of the ranking. Innovation and technology in our countries has not been motivated by the governments, and so the effort is all done from the private sector. And from the academic standpoint, our university, our academia they're still way behind in order to introduce these technologies. And of course, the offer of the specialized human resource is very, very varied. And that, of course, creates inequalities when compared to other countries. They represent huge barriers when it comes to offering services in our region, and that will prevent for us to reactivate in due course and proper time. And here I'd like to take a minute. My message to you is the possibility that from our administrations, the private sector, the public sector can standardize and approve all these technological advances to facilitate traveling. If we start seeing several tools, and each one of those is going to approach a different topic, of course, with the goal of moving people around, I think here we need to find a way to standardize, and from our region to try to encourage that to happen. I have no doubt that we are in a digital transformation, and the countries that will not get on board will be left behind. So let's make the biggest effort to keep on track and to keep these levels of technology. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We had Leudo Gonzalez. He was speaking about innovation and development out of Venezuela. Your concepts have been very clear. Leudo is an example of strength and fight in all of the aspects, personally and professionally, and in a country that is so complicated. To finish this panel, will give the floor to our president of FEDESUR, Aldo Elias. He's also the president of the Argentine Chamber of Tourism. He will talk about the core of FEDESUR, the regional integration. Aldo, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Maxi. Wonderful presentations by FEDESUR, our FEDESUR colleagues. We all agree with the reality we have ahead of us and with what is left to develop this tourism, which is essential for the economy of our countries. And regional integration is the most relevant aspect, and I would say the most difficult or the most challenging to develop in Latin America. Why challenging? Well, because it is not only about the private sector. I mean, to unite as a private sector is something which you've been doing for some time now. But as Carlos Canales Anchorena said, the joint work between public and private sectors, we need to create the necessary tools, and these tools will work only if the region adopts them. To do this, we need to develop a clear, deep program across the different options we will take. We will not be able to achieve the objectives of reopening or reactivating tourism if the member countries, I'm sorry, have a different perspective. It will be hopeless to have individual health passports where Argentina was set some conditions or accept, for example, a vaccine, just as what we can already see in Europe. Europe will be accepting some vaccines, others not. So as a region, we need to agree on the vaccines that will be authorized. Otherwise, it would not work. And this is the most important aspect we need to work on. We have been very active in the past few years. Argentina and Chile, that are two countries that we began to understand it was much better to match, to agree, than confront. And because of that, we participated in a tourism fair in Shanghai, China, where for the first time in history we shared a stand. And this so from FEDESUD, we understood that as a success. So, and also at the public sector level and with the participation of the private sector, Argentina and Chile, for Chinese tourists agreed to share visas. That meant that a tourist from China could get a visa in Chile and visit Argentina and the other way around. These were the first steps we taken to interact as a region, and I believe this is this should be the way to go after the post-pandemic. We understand it is not easy. As a private sector, we have a relevant mission, which is to have the public sector work with us to create the tools so that the public sector can lean on the private sector and to assess objective alternatives that provide safety to our countries. We have a development ahead of us. We have lots of energy. We're working very hard on reactivating tourism in the region and to work as a region, as a whole region. We no longer want to be individual countries because we are not seen by the world like that. And if we look at Europe, countries that were beacons in developing tourism, we see them as a continent and not individual countries. And this is the same thing we want to attain for Latin America. And I believe COVID-19 and this pandemic will give us this opportunity. We'll be able to present ourselves as a comprehensive destination that uses the same tools, that requires the same or has the same safety requirements via their protocols, so that tourists can come to our regions safe and knowing that they will be protected, protocols will be respected, and that the whole region will follow the same guidelines. This is highly important. We're putting the our future at stake, and we can generate all of the tools needed for this. Thank you, Maxi. Thank you, Laura, and thank you all. Thanks to all of the participants of this panel and the organizers of this panel to tell the world that tourism is probably confined, probably prevented, but it is not, we haven't given up. We're ready to provide everything we can provide as an industry. Thank you, Aldo, who's the president of the Argentine Chamber of Tourism and president of the South American Federation of Tourism. As he said, the integration is really key, not only among our regions or FEDESUD, it should be really the backbone of the whole tourist industry. Francisco Riveros, thank you, who is from Spain. Francisco, it was an honor to have you here. Your participation, your support. All of you are here. We can see you on the screen. Francisco Riveros, president of SCOL from Madrid, a leader in international tourism. We're very proud to have you here. We expect to have the integration levels that Europe has, which is really, have set an example. You have a very big challenge ahead of you, which is to work together. I mean, all of you together, the private and public sectors together. It is worthwhile that you are able, first of all, to overcome these pandemics that drives us all crazy, and training, as our Bolivian friends said, and then public and private activities to be able to develop first proximity and nature tourists, that million tourists want to visit Southern American destinations. Thank you. Thank you, Francisco. This is the last panel of today, with all the strategies of recovery with the private sector and public sector perspectives. Thank you very much for joining us from around the world. Thank you. Maximiliano, we are approaching the end of today. Maximiliano has been coordinating most of the roundtables and panels that we had the chance to listen to today. But the feedback we got from via the social media has been really, really important. All of the participants that have been following the first global forum on tourism for economic development. Charito says a lot of opportunities and significant knowledge for over-tourism, on tourism. Luis Matias Sosa, as a president of the Neighbors Association of Nueva Córdoba in the city of Córdoba. I believe this is so important, to promote participation and development, and the development of tools, strategies at all levels and spheres that involve citizens and their governments. Thank you, Luis. Jorge Eduardo Romero, I thank you for giving me the opportunity to participate in this forum that is related to what we need to overcome this crisis without making the same old mistakes. Florencia, wonderful meetings. This is a wonderful meeting. Wimper, excellent forum. Congratulations on the organizers and speakers. If you're united at a global level, then we'll be able to succeed. Santiago Novoa, congratulations on the organizers of the event. Congratulations, Córdoba and Maximiliano Mauvesin. Maria Belén, congratulations on the first local forum. Greetings from Córdoba. Mansur Ladi,
visited Córdoba city 2 times in 2014 and 16. I'm very happy to attend the 2-day event. Escribo desde India, he visitado Córdoba 2 veces en 2014 y 2016. Feliz de asistir a este evento de 2 días. Hilda Fabiana Guzmán nos dice, hola, soy técnica en
Hilda
turismo
Fabiana
residente
Guzmán,
2020.
I'm a technician in tourism. I expect that this forum gives us some encouragement to be able to continue. Elizabeth Boca, thank you for the first local, and I wish you the very best. Amanda Cosme Mercado, excellent job from Esmeraldas, Ecuador. Majo Vergania, great opportunity to have a look at the reality of the sectors and to see what are the next steps. And so the issues addressed are really significant. Ezequiel Suarez from Civil Association Guías, a wonderful job by the organizers of the event and the province of Córdoba. It's important to visualize all of the sectors that comprise tourism. There are still sectors that are left behind based on the current scenario. Rosario Delgado, excellent panel. Congratulations from Posadas, province of Misiones. Maria Victoria Reyes, excellent information. Now more than ever, we need to create partnerships to overcome barriers and difficulties that we are facing as a tourism industry and the population in general. So, wonderful participation. Thank you, Maximiliano. Thank you all. So we have a lot to think about, and we're going to meet tomorrow, our second day on the first Global Forum on Tourism and Economic Development. See you tomorrow. Good morning. My name is Inmaculada Benito. I'm the director of the Department of Culture and Sports. I'd like to invite you to participate in June 2nd and 3rd, to participate the Global Forum that will take place in Cordoba, Argentina, where businesses and representatives of civil society will discuss and present tools and policies that help us encourage the use of territories in times of uncertainty. Thank you very much. We'll meet soon at the Global Forum.
Hay un lugar donde el día y la noche se disfrutan distinto, pero con la misma intensidad. Un lugar que lo tiene todo y que está en el centro de todo. A donde llegas fácilmente, pero que es difícil abandonar. Un lugar con historia, con presente, con futuro. Un lugar que te sorprende, te emociona, te enamora. Un lugar donde se disfrutan todos los placeres y se calman todos los apetitos. Solo, acompañado, bien acompañado o muy acompañado. Disfruta Córdoba ciudad.
Recording stopped.